Hey, how's it going? I know it's been a really long, actually it's only been 5 days. It's only been 5 days since I last streamed. And hopefully we'll have a few more people joining us. And I have a subject, again, that I want to talk about. And it's the big news. If you're paying attention, it's the big news. For most people, the big news is some bullshit John Fetterman said at a conference or something. But the big news we're going to talk about is all of these people who used to run around saying, well, it's a private company, they can do whatever they want. That turns out not to be entirely true. And there might actually be lawsuits. In fact, I'm going to guarantee that there's going to be a whole lot of lawsuits coming out of this. And this was kind of leaked by it was leaked by somebody to The Intercept, and The Intercept did an article about it. We're going to kind of go over it and go over my thoughts with it. And a lot of people have been sending this to me. One in particular would be Mr. Dapperton sent this to me, and I was like, yeah, I've already been kind of aware of this. This is already making the rounds and everything. And this is important. So I guess we can just get right into it, I guess. This is called Truth Cops. Leaked documents outline DHS plans to police disinformation, or rather misinformation, things that are not correct. Oof. The Department of Homeland Security is quietly broadening its effort to curb speech it considers dangerous. An investigation by The Intercept has found years of internal DHS memos, emails, and documents obtained by leaks and an ongoing lawsuit. There will be more. As well as public documents, illustrate an expansive effort by the agency to influence tech platform. The work, much of which remains unknown to the American public, came to clearer view earlier this year when DHS announced a new disinformation governance board. You guys remember that? Do you remember when that was a thing? When they announced that, and then they were like, oh no, it's psych. Them's jokes. We wouldn't actually do that. No. But they did. We're going to zoom in a little bit because if you're not already aware, my eyes are reading things in small text is not good for me. Yeah, but they said that they were going to announce a disinformation governance board, and it was going to kind of effectively police, or at least give out correct information about disinformation that was being pumped onto social media platforms of all different kinds. It gained a bunch of backlash, and of course people are trying to call me when I'm doing a live stream. No, not right now. Call back later. Yeah, there was a lot of pushback, and then all of a sudden it was like, what disinformation board? I don't know what you're talking about. It was really Orwellian, so a lot of people were upset by it. A panel designed to police misinformation, false information spread unintentionally, disinformation, false information spread intentionally, and malinformation, factual information shared typically out of context with harmful intent that allegedly threatens U.S. interests. While the board was widely ridiculed, immediately scaled back, and then shut down within a few months. That was funny. Other initiatives are underway as DHS pivots to monitor social media now that its original mandate, the war on terror, has been wound down. I'm going to call cap on that. Behind closed doors and through pressure on private platforms, the U.S. government has used its power to try to shape online discourse. According to meeting minutes, what do they mean by meeting minutes? We can find that out. Oh, here we go. Oof. That looks like it could be an interesting read for later, not on stream. And other records appended to a lawsuit filed by Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt, a Republican who is also running for Senate. Discussions have ranged from the scale and scope of government intervention in online discourse to the mechanics of streamlining takedown requests for false or intentionally misleading information. And this is going to be important. Again, all these people who were going around saying, oh, it's a private company, they can do whatever they want. Again, this is not entirely true. And it turns out it was probably never true since 2016 when the DHS started doing this sort of thing. The DHS has, and by the way, this is not completely new, right? This is information that has been sort of out there, but we just didn't have all the pieces to the puzzle. We just had little things said by this person here and this person there. For instance, I believe it was either on Joe Rogan or on Lex Friedman. You had Zuckerberg talking about what happened with all of these kind of fake news stories that came out, and the people that were sharing it or misinformation, and that the DHS and the FBI and various agencies had came to them and said, hey, this is very dangerous. Russia has been spreading misinformation about the campaign, blah, 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 blah. And could you do something about it? And it got to the point, well, we're going to get to that. But it got to the point where they were actually just calling what would need to be taken down without any kind of oversight from the social media companies themselves, which violates law. And again, there's going to be a lot of lawsuits out of this. And because of this lawsuit right here, there's going to be a lot more lawsuits that are coming now that all this information is got out. Platforms have got to get comfortable with the government. It's really interesting how hesitant they remain, Microsoft executive Matt Masterson, former DHS official, texted Jen Easterly, a DHS director, in February. In a March meeting, Laura Demlau, an FBI official, warned that the threat of subversive information on social media could undermine support for the U.S. government. You know what also is a good way to lose support for the federal government is just having someone like Biden in charge of it. Man, that is really disenchanting to a lot of people. Hey, Shiny. How's it going? Let's see. So according to notes of the discussion attended by senior executives from Twitter and JP Morgan Chase, interesting, stressed that we need media infrastructure that is held accountable. We do not coordinate with other entities when making content moderation decisions, and we independently evaluate content in line with the Twitter rules, a spokesperson for Twitter said in a statement to The Intercept. Not true. There's also a formalized process for government officials to directly flag content on Facebook or Instagram and requested that it be throttled or suspended through a special Facebook portal, which, by the way, I believe this Facebook portal is still there. I did not want to open that in another window. I wanted to open it in another tab. There we go. So yeah, there was a portal on Facebook that government officials can log into and then just submit news stories that are misinformation, disinformation. And it spanned from COVID-19. It spanned from Russia, Ukraine. It spanned election result coverage, questioning election results, which, by the way, I doubt that they were posting any ones that suggested that Donald Trump had stole the election, which there were plenty of news articles spreading that piece of misinformation. But it's only bad when Republicans do it to Democrats. But when Democrats do it to Republicans, it's fine because they are Democrats, right? They hold the monopoly on democracy, allegedly. And it just keeps going back to what I keep saying over and over again. Democracy is when my stuff gets through a popular vote, and it's a threat to. So yeah, a Facebook portal that requires government or law enforcement email to use. At the time of this writing, the content request system at facebook.com. Actually, let's see if it's still going there. Copy. Let's go. Nope. Paste. Yeah, it's still there. We go. They still have it up, and a lot of people have gone to this website and shown that it's still active. Yeah. By the way, hi T McDouglas, excuse me. God damn it, dyslexia. Hi, T. Douglas. How you doing? Unrelated, but I'm going to go converts to Satanism to Anglo-Saxon paganism. How dare you? That's fine. Enjoy. So at the time of this writing, the content request system at facebook.com/extra takedowns/login is still live. DHS and Meta, the parent company of Facebook, did not respond to a request for comment, and the FBI declined to comment. Weird. It's weird that we can't hold people accountable. DHS missions to fight disinformation stemming from concerns around Russian influence in the 2016 presidential election, fake news, began taking shape during the 2020 election and over efforts to shape discussions around vaccine policy during the coronavirus pandemic. Documents collected by The Intercept from a variety of sources, including current officials and publicly available reports. According to a draft copy of the DHS Homeland Security Review, DHS capstone report outlining the department's strategy and priorities in the coming years, the department plans to target inaccurate information and on a wide range of topics, including the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic and the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines, racial justice, why. This is none of your business. This is none of your concern. U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Yeah, everything was fine. Everything was fine. We pulled out. We got all of our stuff. The Taliban didn't get anything. Everything was fine. Biden did a wonderful job. No problems there whatsoever. Oh, you want to disagree with that? Ban. And the nature of U.S. support to Ukraine. We're not involved in the Ukraine war at all. We need to be, but we're not. We're just giving them weapons. That's not the same. It's not the same. And Russia has no right to be mad at us for, supplying an enemy of them to war. Which, by the way, I need to reiterate because there are people that are not in the nosebleeds. They're pretending to be in the nosebleeds just to try to get social credit, I guess is the best way of putting it. Anybody who disagrees with what's going on in Ukraine, and if you disagree that we should get involved with it, well, then you're just consuming Russian propaganda. To those people, I say, fuck you, die actually don't die. I really like you, and I hope you live a very long, life, but you need to get up against the wall because you know that that's not true. I personally have been banging the drums for a solid decade against Russia Today and a lot of these kind of faux news outlets like Russia Today and Press TV. Is it called Press TV? I think it's called Press TV. The fucking Iranian one that, what the fuck is his name? Mouse Rebel News keeps speaking on and thinks is like a real news organization. No, they're basically propaganda machines. And I had, for the longest time on my previous channel, and I think it's all dead now because I think the Russia Today channel is actually gone from YouTube. But I had shared a playlist of all the batshit nutty things that were on Russia Today. And there was a lot of batshit nutty things that were in Russia Today. Like they would give talking time to people like Alex Jones. They would give people. He was actually one of the least of it. Like they were giving time to Lyndon LaRouche. They were giving time to people who thought that the missile in California was like an alien sign or something to do with aliens. They gave that crazy bitch time, and they weren't really pressing her or anything. They were just kind of like, oh, that's really interesting that you think that it's aliens. Narrative to push or chance an expansion of government. Why not both? Yeah, exactly. What else were they sharing? They were sharing things about, what was it? Occupy Wall Street. That was a big thing. They were supporting a lot of Occupy Wall Street stuff. But anytime there was an Occupy Wall Street thing happening in Russia, which there were a lot of at the time, they just pretended like that never happened. The Zeitgeist movement always got free time on there. In fact, they gave two Zeitgeisters TV shows, the Abby Martin and Lee Camp. And they constantly had Peter Joseph Merola. They also had constant appearances by Roxanne Meadows and Jock Fresco of the Zeitgeist movement. They would give them time anytime they wanted. And the whole point of it, and the reason why they kept giving time to all kinds of like libertarians, not just libertarians, but like communists, robo-communists like the Zeitgeisters, and cranks like LaRouche and all this stuff, is because all of those people have only nasty things to say about the West, and they just give them a platform. Because the whole thing of Russia today was always everything in America is bad, everything in the West is bad, everything in Europe is bad, everything in South America is bad, but everything in Asia is just fucking wonderful. That was the whole point of that news network. And that's not to say that there's bad things to say about the mainstream news here. There's plenty to say. They're probably just as bad. They're just shilling for another regime. So the challenge is particularly acute in marginalized communities, the report states, which are often the targets of false or misleading information, such as false information on voting procedures targeting people of color. Like, here's one. It's hard for you to get an ID card if you're black. The implication is they're dumb, right? That's what they keep doing over and over again. Is they're like, oh, these people are racist. Everybody who is a Republican is racist. Also, we can't have voter ID laws because minorities are too stupid to figure out how to get a driver's license. It's so weird. It's so weird how what is it called? I think it's called projection. That's probably what it's called. The inclusion of the 2021 U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan is particularly noteworthy, given that House Republicans, should they take majority of the midterms, which it looks like they will, have vowed to investigate. This makes Benghazi look like a much smaller issue, said Representative Mike Johnson, Republican from Louisiana, a member of the Armed Services Committee, adding that finding answers will be a top priority. How disinformation is defined by the government has not been clearly articulated, and the inherently subjective nature of what constitutes disinformation provides a broad opening for DHS officials to make politically motivated determinations about what constitutes dangerous speech. This is important. So you have DHS officials determining what is politically motivated speech that is dangerous, and then having full reign on social media platforms to remove it from the platform, at least throttle it, often removing it and banning anybody who shares it. This is a gross violation of the First Amendment. The government is not allowed to do this. And that is why there is a lawsuit pending. And now that this information is out, there's going to be a lot more lawsuits pending. And there's going to be blood. A lot of people's heads are going to roll. Figuratively speaking. I got to spell that out because people on the internet are dumb. Robo-commies. So Arnold Schwarzenegger is a communist. No. He's a Democrat. An establishment Democrat. He's a Republican, I swear. DHS, basically, like all California Republicans are like Democrat lights. Occasionally, you'll get someone like Darrell Issa, or who is that one guy who's like one of the last neocons during the 2012 primaries that were really trying really hard to stay alive. He was, God, I can't remember his name. He was from San Diego. Maybe Shani will know. I think his name was Mark Thompson. No. Something like that. It was something like that. Basic name. But yeah, a lot of blue state Republicans are basically just Democrat lights. DHS justifies these goals, which have expanded far beyond its original purview on foreign threats, to encompass disinformation originating domestically, by claiming that terrorist threats can be masturbated. There we go. It's masturbated by misinformation and disinformation spread online. But the laudable goal of protecting Americans from danger has often been used to conceal. Hold on a second. I need to see that. Okay. I think we're good. Yeah. Where was I? Fucking moved the window around now. Now I don't know where I am. But a laudable goal of protecting Americans from danger has often been used to conceal political maneuvering. In 2004, for instance, DHS officials faced pressure from the George W. Bush administration to heighten the national threat level for terrorism in a bid to influence voters prior to the election, according to former DHS Secretary Tom Ridge. I remember that guy. I think that was the guy who wanted everybody to buy duct tape and plastic sheeting in case of like a chemical attack to like completely seal off your house, so you not just potentially die from a bad seal from whatever chemical weapon that's being sprayed on your house to like just suffocating in your own house. Brilliant. Just fucking brilliant people. U.S. officials had routinely lied about an array of issues, from causing its wars in Vietnam and Iraq. I'm glad that they're finally admitting that the war in Iraq was a farce. And Iraq. That took a while. Everybody was kind of like, oh, it was a laudable goal. We were trying to bring democracy over there. The weapons of mass destruction thing wasn't true. But, we were, at the end of the day, what we were really trying to do, spread freedom and democracy. Or shit. In their more recent obfuscation around the role of the National Institute of Health in funding the Wuhan Institute of Virology coronavirus research. Remember, not that long ago, for me to even say something like that would have definitely gotten this video removed from YouTube at worst, or at best. At worst, get me completely banned from the platform, demonetized. And now we know why. It really wasn't the decision of YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. It was basically the DHS having access behind the scenes of removing the stuff. That track record has not prevented the U.S. government from seeking to become arbiters of what constitutes false and dangerous information on inherently political topics. Earlier this year, Republican Governor Ron DeSantis signed a law known by supporters as the Stop Woke Act, which bans private employers from workplace trainings, asserting that an individual's moral character is privileged or oppressed based on his or her race, color, sex, or national origin. The law, critics charged, amount to broad suppression of free speech deemed offensive. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, or FIRE, has since filed a lawsuit against DeSantis alleging unconstitutional censorship. A federal judge has temporarily blocked parts of the Stop Woke Act. Parts of the Stop Woke Act. God damn it. Parts of the Stop Woke Act, ruling that the law had violated workers' First Amendment rights. I'm not sure that it's the workers' First Amendments that are being violated. It's the employers' First Amendments that are right. If the law is that straightforward, which I'm not too familiar with this law, if the law is what it says it is, then yes, it's probably not okay to have a law that prevents employers from having some sort of political agenda. Now, there might be some shenanigans around 501c3s or religious institutions having a particular opinion on that sort of thing and pushing it internally. I'm not sure. I qualify that by saying that I am not familiar with the case law revolving around that. I believe that might be the case, but even still, from a libertarian perspective, that should not be prevented. It should be discouraged, but not prevented by law, because that is a violation of free speech, but not on the workers. Florida's legislators Florida's legislators may well find plaintiffs' free speech repugnant, but but under our constitutional scheme, the remedy for repugnant speech is more speech, not enforced silence, wrote Judge Mark Walker. A colorful opinion cascading law. The extent in which the DHS initiatives affect Americans' daily social feeds is unclear. During the 2020 election, the government flagged numerous posts as suspicious, many of which were taken down. Documents cited in the Missouri Attorney General's lawsuit disclosed. And a 2021 report by the Election Integrity Partnership at Stanford University found that nearly 4,800 flagged items. Technology platforms took action on 35%, either removing, labeling, or soft blocking speech, meaning users were only able to view the content after bypassing a warning screen. This research was done in consultation with the CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. I am not familiar with that. What is that? CISA.gov. So it's a government agency. Again, the government does not have the purview to shut down politically inconvenient speech, right? There are speeches that the government has the constitutional right to limit. Direct threats, bomb threats, coordinating like terrorist attacks, that sort of thing, actual planning of crimes. Which, by the way, one thing that always bugged me about people who talk about conspiracy, and this includes Rothbard, people think that conspiracy is not a real crime, and it is. It is a real crime. If I say to you, hey, let's rob a bank, let's plan robbing a bank, and then never do anything, that's not considered conspiracy. If I'm planning with you a robbery and then we at the end of it go, yeah, that was pretty fun to plan it, let's not do it, that should not be a crime, and that's not a crime. What is a crime is after you've made the plans to, get the truck and then, buy the fertilizer and get, X, Y, Z, and you go out and do one of those things, like go and rent the truck, then it's conspiracy, right? It's only when you actually take action on that plan that it's considered a conspiracy. We're not going to wait until someone actually blows up a building before we say, hey, that's wrong. If you're in the process of getting ready to murder someone, right, you could well prevent them. Prior to the 2020 election, tech companies, including Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Discord, Wikipedia, Microsoft, LinkedIn, and Verizon Media met on a monthly basis with the FBI, the CISA, and other government representatives, according to NBC News. The meetings were part of an initiative still ongoing between private sector and government to discuss how firms should handle misinformation during election. And that is none of the government's purview to do that. It is not. It's not in their purview to do that. Excuse me. It's not in their purview to do that. And for them to actually take action on that warrants a constitutional crisis almost. Like this is, again, this is a direct violation for the government to be removing posts on social media because they find it politically dangerous for whatever reason. As long as it's free speech, as long as no one is being threatened with violence or anything like that. Things that there is case law and precedents protecting them is against the First Amendment. And from a philosophical perspective, the philosophy of the Constitution even more limited. It's okay for a politician to say, "Hey, it's wrong to say that spread that information." It's okay for bureaucratic agencies like the CIA to come out and say, "Hey, don't share this information. It's bad." But once they actually take action to remove it, that's why this lawsuit is being presented. And I guarantee now that all this information is coming out, there's going to be plenty of lawsuits coming out. I keep repeating this over and over again because it's true. There's going to be lots of lawsuits coming out about this, and heads will roll. And good. The stepped-up counter-disinformation effort began in 2018 following a high-profile hacking incident of U.S. firms, which, when Congress passed and President Donald Trump signed the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency Act, so we can blame Trump for this. I don't want everybody to walk away with this thinking that it's only the Biden administration that's bad. No, Trump was bad too. Like, he started a lot of this shit. In fact, he even started the whole COVID shit. He actually made Fauci a fucking rock star. He didn't have to. He could have been like, no, you're an asshole. You're fired. I'm appointing another head of the CDC. But he didn't. Instead, he kept bringing him on, going like, this guy is amazing. He's fantastic. Hi, Nikki. Is that the same? Is that the Nikki I'm thinking of? Is that the same Nikki I'm thinking of? If it is, worms. Where was I? So yeah, so fuck Trump. Like, he's the kind of the start of this, and he's kind of like the dumb idiot in the room, who he just kind of relies on these kind of establishment hacks that he hired around him, which doesn't make sense. Like, you're going to drain the swamp. Why are you bringing in establishment hacks to tell you how to fucking run shit? Oh, it's cake. Okay, never mind. I know that's a good Nikki too. Yeah, yeah, but he kept doing that, and it started a lot of the mess that we're in now. Had he actually drained the swamp like he promised to, it probably would have been in a better situation, especially regarding this. In August 2020, report by the DHS, or in August 2022, report by the DHS, Office of Inspector General sketches the rapidly accelerating move towards political disinformation. From the onset, the CISA boasted an evolved mission to monitor social media discussions while routing disinformation concerns to private sector platforms. In a 2018, then DHS Secretary Kirsten Nielsen created the Countering Foreign Influence and Task Force to respond to election disinformation. The task force, the task force, which included members of the CISA as well as its Office of Intelligence and Analysis, generated threat intelligence about the election and notified social media platforms and law enforcement. At the same time, DHS began notifying social media companies about voting-related disinformation appearing on social media platforms, which, by the way, all of it was okay. All of it was always allowed. All of it was always okay with the people that were telling Facebook, Meta, all of these social media companies. Hold on, I gotta tighten my boot a little bit because it's getting really kind of distracting how uncomfortable it is. Which, by the way, I'm pretty much walking around now without the boot, but I only have it on now because it's because I was walking around today at the store. But around the house, I am boot free. My foot is getting a whole lot better, thank God. Where was I going with that? Threat intelligence. At the same time, the DHS been noted. Okay, so yeah. Anyways, all of this stuff was okay about the elections, saying that the elections were stolen. All of that was fine. There's only one election you're not allowed to say that the election was stolen, or that the election was fraudulent, or the election results were not accurate, and blah, blah, blah. And that was specifically the 2020 elections. You could say the 2016 was stolen. That was always okay. In fact, they're still saying it. And they're still being allowed to say it. You're allowed to say the 2004 election was stolen in Ohio. You're allowed to say that the election was stolen in Florida in the 2000 election. You're allowed to say it. You've always been allowed to say it. You're still allowed to say it. There's only one election you're not allowed to question, and that's the 2020 election. The 2020 election is the only election in the history of the United States, the only one, that you're not allowed to question. Because it was the only one that was completely free of any sort of, shenanigans. That was the only one. All of the other ones were all crap. I wonder if they feel the same about Obama. It's funny. It really depends on what party you're going after, right? I think that's what it really boils down to. All right. In 2019, the DHS created a separate entity called the Foreign Influence and Interference Breach to generate more detailed intelligence about disinformation. The Inspector General report shows. Again, it's weird how they keep creating multiple agencies in order to combat this stuff. And they're all given access to the portal on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, et cetera, Reddit, Discord, in order to take all this stuff down. And it seems to be all the misinformation is always directed at one political way. But all the other misinformation that's directed the other way is allowed. It's so weird. That year, again, to quote Curtis Yarvin, who I like, I think Curtis Yarvin says, for every one brilliant thing he says, and he says a lot of brilliant things, he also says one retarded thing, but that's besides the point. But, Cthulhu always marches forward, but isn't it interesting that it always veers left? That year, its staff grew to include 15 full and part-time staff dedicated to disinformation analysis. In 2020, the disinformation focus expanded to include COVID-19, and according to the Homeland Threat Assessment issued by Acting Secretary Chad Wolf. I have a feeling that Chad Wolf does not look like a Chad. Let's check. A little chatty. This apparatus had a dry run during the 2020 election when CISA began working with other members in the U.S. intelligence community. Office of Intelligence and Analysis personnel attended weekly teleconferences to coordinate intelligence community activities to counter election-related disinformation. Weird how that never came up around 2016. Weird. Which, that was the election that was stolen, obviously. According to the IG report, the meetings have continued to take place every 2 weeks since the elections. Emails between DHS officials, Twitter, and the Center for Internet Security outlined the process for such takedown requests during the period leading up to November 2020, which again is unconstitutional for the federal government to engage in that sort of behavior. They're not allowed to do that. Meeting notes show that the tech platforms would be called upon to, quote, process reports and provide timely responses to include the removal of reported misinformation from the platform where possible. In practice, this often meant that state election officials sent examples of potential forms of disinformation to the CISA, which would then forward them to the social media companies for a response. Again, they're just they had all of this streamlined. They knew that if they posted those things on there, they would be removed immediately, and people sharing it would be removed or had warning things saying that it was misinformation, or just completely deleted from the platform and banned from the platform. And the government was actively engaged in this. Again, this has nothing to do with it's a private platform. They could do whatever they want. If they're being coordinated by the federal government in order to do it. Fuck off. Chad is definitely a furry. Chad Wolf a furry. No. Okay, so in case you didn't know, T. Douglas, I had broken my foot and I'm wearing a boot in order to protect my foot. It's not like a cowboy boot. Maybe someday. I do live in Texas now. Do you allow YouTube simping? Do I? I hope not. Let's see. Emails between DHS officials, Twitter, and the Center, blah, 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 called upon process reports in a timely for companies for response. Here we go. Under President Joe Biden, the shifting focus on disinformation has continued. In January 2021, the CISA replaced the Countering Foreign Influence Task Force. Again, so many of these little agencies that just keep popping up conveniently around one election. One election. It's the election that had nothing to do with outsider influence, because that election was fine. It was the previous election that they were completely non-existent and or absent. With the misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation team, which was then created to promote more flexibility to focus on general MDM. Misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, which, by the way, that's going to be the new term, MDM. You're going to hear a lot more of that. By now, the scope of the effort had expanded beyond disinformation produced by foreign governments to include domestic versions. The MDM team, according to one CISA official quoted in the IG report, counters all types of disinformation to be responsive to the current events. Weird. Feature creep. Government engaged in feature creep. Who'd have thunk it? I, in a million years, would never have guessed it. Jen Easterly, Biden's appointed director of the CISA, God, that is a terrible acronym to say, swiftly made it clear that she would continue to shift resources in the agency to combat the spread of dangerous forms of information on social media. One could argue we're in the business of critical infrastructure, and the most critical infrastructure of our cognitive infrastructure. So building that resilience to misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, you forgot one lady, I think is incredibly important, said Easterly, speaking at a conference in November 2021. And it's weird, again, how all of the misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation all kind of be slanted in one way. All of the misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation going the other way is perfectly allowed on these platforms. CISA's domain has gradually expanded to encompass more subjects it believes amount to critical infrastructure. Last year, The Intercept reported on the existence of a series of DHS field intelligence reports warning of attacks on cell towers, which it had tied to conspiracy theorists who believed 5G towers would spread COVID-19. One intelligence report pointed out that these conspiracy theories are inciting attacks against the communications infrastructure. This is important. And it came up every single time anyone gave any sort of critical analysis of COVID-19. Always. And you can actually go and look up some of the old clips of people talking about people who were critical of the COVID regime at the time. What you do is you find the 5 cranks that believe that 5G was the reason why COVID-19 symptoms were coming up. It had nothing to do with the virus. It was about these cell towers. You find those cranks and then find the ones that, the 2 or 3 that attacked a cell phone tower and be like, wow, they're all bad. Everybody else is like them. Everybody else who criticizes the COVID regime are basically those guys. And that's why we need to come in and tell you what to delete off your platform, because you're allowing this to happen, Facebook. You're allowing this to happen, Twitter. This is all your fault because you didn't stop this. And then Twitter and Facebook could have came back and said, hey, there's only like 10 people that are actually saying this nonsense. And we whatever. All of the other people who are saying other stuff about it are actually giving like some reasonable opinions about this. Maybe there's no information right now that backs up any of their claims, but they're not saying that it's cell phone towers. It's not some crazy lunatic shit, right? The government actually is involved, and there's evidence to show that they're involved in, what do they call it? The virus research. I can't remember the name of it. Gain of function research. There's proof of this. This may not be that, but there is evidence for it, so it's not completely crazy like the 5G shit, but you just lump them all into one camp, say they're all bad, and look, they're actually causing damage to the infrastructure. Isn't it bad? Let us block your people. It wasn't outsider influence that was... Excuse me. It wasn't outsider influence. It was insider. That's what people are misinformed on. The COVID vaccine made me gay. Oh, no. Oh. The CISA's domain has gradually expanded to encompass more subjects. I already said that. The CISA has defended its burgeoning social media monitoring authorities, stating that, quote, CISA has notified social media platforms of disinformation, but the social media platform could independently decide whether to remove or modify the post. But as documents revealed by the Missouri lawsuit show, the CISA's goal is to make platforms responsive to their suggestions. In late February, Easterly texted with Matthew Masterson, a representative at Microsoft who formerly worked at the CISA, weird, that she is trying to get us in a place where the Fed can work with platforms to better understand misdis trends. Oh, that's a new one. That's going to be the new cult slogan. That's going to be the new cult jargon. Misdis trends so relevant, agencies can try to debunk as useful. Meeting records of the CISA's Cybersecurity Advisory Committee, the main subcommittee that handles disinformation policy at the CISA, show a constant effort to expand the scope of agencies' tools to foil disinformation. Weird. Again, feature creep. I wonder how this keeps happening. It's almost like it's some sort of like thing that government does over and over again. Gets a little bit of power, and what's more? In June, the same DHS Advisory Committee of CISA, which includes the Twitter head of legal policy, trust, and safety, Vijaya God, by Felicia, and the University of Washington professor Kate Starbird, drafted a report that to the CISA director calling for an expansive role in the agency in help shaping the information ecosystem. The report called on the agency to closely monitor social media platforms of all sizes, mainstream media, cable news, hyper-partisan media, talk radio, with hyper-partisan. What that says is, oh, we're fine with partisan. CNN, that's fine. MSNBC, that's fine. ABC, that's fine. Young Turks, that's fine. But the hyper ones, that's Fox News, that's the Daily Beast, that's the Daily or not the Daily Beast. That's a Daily Wire. The Daily Beast is okay. They're not hyper-partisan. This is hyper-partisan. Talk radio and other online resources, unquote. They argued that the agency needed to take steps to halt the spread of false and misleading information, with a focus on information that undermines key democratic institutions such as the courts, or by other sectors such as the financial system or public health measures. Yeah, don't question our COVID policy. By the way, it's okay to question it now. But please give us amnesty. We should talk about that article. Oh, should we talk about that article? Let me know. Let me know in chat. We should talk about the amnesty. To accomplish these broad goals, the report said, the CISA should invest in external research to evaluate the efficacy of interventions. So they were doing this completely unconcerned for the longest time, completely unconcerned with the efficacy of its interventions. Specifically with research looking at how alleged disinformation can be countered and how quickly messages spread. Jeff Hale, the director of the Election Security Initiative at the CISA, recommended the use of third-party information sharing nonprofits as a clearinghouse for information to avoid the appearance of government propaganda. And it's weird that they always cite groups like Snopes, the Southern Poverty Law Center, completely unbiased, fact checkers, completely unbiased. They have absolutely no bias whatsoever. By the way, it is getting kind of dark in here, isn't it? Give me right back. Maybe I hope this doesn't wash everything out, but here we are. We're doing it anyway. So they're having these third-party agencies that have a clear bias, and it's usually in favor of the biases of the government officials that are executing this program, and then say, "Oh, we didn't have a hand in that." It's just talk about it. I don't know how to spell amnesty. Well, actually, I do. Apparently, I do. So we're going to talk about this brilliant article. Oh, God, this is going to be great. Last Tuesday. Uh-oh. Getting some buffering issues. Oh, wait. Okay. It looks like we're doing better. Looks like we're doing good. Okay. Last Thursday, immediately following billionaire Elon Musk's completed acquisition of Twitter, God was terminated from the company. Bye, Felicia. The Biden administration, however, did take a stab at making part of this infrastructure public in April 2022. So again, this is not something that should be, this whole thing should not be coming at a major surprise. Many of the key details in it should be a surprise to a lot of people. Well, that's fair. But all of this stuff has been slowly coming out over time. And all of it has been pointing to something like this. Now we have the receipts. With the announcement of the Disinformation Governance Board, the exact functions of the board and how it would accomplish this goal of defining and combating MDM were never made clear. Now we know. And they're doing it anyway. They're just not using that term. The board, faced with immediate backlash across the political spectrum, who among us thinks the government should add to its work list the job of determining what is true and what is disinformation, and who thinks the government is capable of telling the truth, wrote political media critic Jack Schaefer. Our government produces lies and disinformation at an industrial scale. Bam. And always have. Bam. Fact. It overclassifies vital information to block its own citizen from becoming any wiser. It pays thousands of press aides to play hide the salami with the facts. Ooh, woo. Want to play hide the salami. Yeah, that's true. I mean, think about it. Okay, all the wars that we've gotten into, we kept getting told over and over again, we'll get in and out of this thing. They have weapons of mass destruction. They're working with bin Laden. Bin Laden's hiding in there, blah, 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 blah. None of that stuff turned out to be true, and they knew it at the time, and they said it anyway. Why did the terrorists blow up the Twin Towers? Well, it's because they hated Coca-Cola and Britney Spears. No, actually, why don't we actually read the document? No, don't read that. Don't read any of the information. Don't watch too much of the Bin Laden reports. Don't do that. We don't actually want people to know why he's upset. Well, why was he upset? Well, the list of reasons why he was upset was that the United States continued to support Israel. That the United States had soldiers on Holy Land, which is Saudi Arabia. The continuing intervention in the Middle East, military intervention in the Middle East, and disruptions in Middle Eastern politics. All of that stuff. That was their grievances. Some of those you may find to be a little excessive. Maybe you think that, the United States should be helping out Israel. It's fine. But to sit there and try to pretend like the real reason why the reason why the Twin Towers went down was because, Bin Laden hated Britney Spears and Coca-Cola, it's factually inaccurate. He was mad about mostly from U.S. foreign policy. And we weren't allowed to say it. We could say it because we didn't have this MDM task force yet. The board faced immediate backlash across the political spectrum. Oh, yeah, we already said that. DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas alluded to the broad scope of the agency's disinformation effort when he told the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee that the role of the board, which by that point had been downgraded to a working group, is to actually, quote, develop guidelines, standards, guardrails to ensure that the work that has been going on for nearly 10 years does not infringe upon the people's free speech rights, rights of privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties. Bullshit. It was quite disconcerting, frankly, he added, that the disinformation work that was well underway for many years across the different independent administrations was not guided by guardrails. Oh, shocked. Shocked that the government would, expand its role. When has that ever happened? DHS eventually scrapped the Disinformation Governance Board in August, officially. While free speech advocates cheered the dissolution of the board, other government efforts to root out disinformation have not only continued, but expanded to encompass additional DHS sub-agencies like Customs and Border Protections, which, quote, determines whether information about the components spread through social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter is accurate, unquote. Other agencies such as the Immigrations and Custom Enforcement and the Science and Technology Directorate, whose responsibilities include determining whether social media accounts were bots or humans, and how many of them, or how the mayhem caused by bots affects behavior. And the Secret Service have also expanded their purview to include disinformation. Why? They only have 2 jobs, right? The Secret Service has 3 jobs. They have 3 jobs. The first job is to protect the President of the United States. The second job is to protect against counterfeiters, which, funny, they never show up at the Federal Reserve. The other one that they have to do is protect foreign dignitaries at at embassies. That's it. That's their job. Now their job is to get on the internet and be like, that's bullshit. Block. According to the Inspector General report, the draft copy of the DHS 2022 quadrennial Homeland Security Review, reviewed by The Intercept, also confirms that the DHS views the issue of tackling disinformation and misinformation as a growing portion of its core duties, while counterterrorism remains the first and most important mission of the department. It notes the agency's work on these missions is evolving and dynamic. Weird. Again, how all of these government agencies just keep finding new things to do to shut you up. And now must adapt to terror threats exacerbated by misinformation and disinformation spread online, including by domestic violent extremists. Domestic violent extremists like, agorists selling jelly jars for Bitcoin out of the garage. Okay, I should be like him. Okay, fine. To accomplish this, their dwarfed Continental Review calls for DRS to leverage advanced data analyses and Maoism technology. I'm just fucking with you. To accomplish this, the draft... I can't pronounce that word. How do you pronounce it? It's going to drive me nuts because they keep saying that. I don't know, whatever. No, asshole. I hate when that happens. Quadrennial. There we go. See, at least I put forth the effort to figure it out. Maoism. To accomplish this, the draft quadrennial review calls for the DHS to leverage advanced data analytics technology and hire and train skilled specialists to better understand how threat actors use online platforms to introduce and spread toxic narratives intended to inspire or incite violence, as well as work with NGOs and other parts of civil society to build resilience to the impacts of false information. I want to know what exactly they mean by that. Spread toxic narratives intended to inspire or incite violence. That sounds like something Essa would say. In a run-on rambly sentence of word salad. That's something that would be thrown in there. And it's spread toxic narratives intended to inspire or incite violence. Well, how do you know it's intended to do that? Unless they actually say it. Unless they say like, yeah, we should go, do terrible thing to place X, and I'm going to do that by spreading bad information about things that are happening within said X. The broad definition of threat actors posing risks to vaguely defined critical infrastructure, an area as broad as trust in government, public health, elections, financial markets, has concerned civil libertarians. Civil libertarians concerned with freedom of speech. Right? And let's just say for a hypothetical that all of the misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation that was spread across these things that these government agencies were actively stopping were actual falsehoods. Like none of them were true, which it seems like a lot of them were true. But let's just say that they were all completely true, right? That an area as broad as trust in government. You're telling me that we need to ban things because it undermines your job, the institution that you work for, and therefore your job. How fucking Orwellian is that? That civil libertarians, not libertarians, but civil libertarians, would be concerned about that. That's why I really hate now, and it really bugs me like even more in recent days that people like, oh, I'm not a libertarian, but I am a civil libertarian. It's like, well, then you're actually shit. No matter your political allegiances, all of us have good reasons to be concerned about government efforts to pressure social media companies into reaching the government's preferred decisions about what content we can see online. No, never mind. It's concerned civil libertarians. But still, there are civil libertarians who kind of like, it's misinformation. And we're seeing a lot of this stuff with kind of like a lot of the backlash to like the Mises Caucus people who are not just civil libertarians, but libertarians full stop, are like, oh, no, like you're quoting debunked information about Russia. What's wrong with what the lockdowners did? All they ever did was tell you to wear a mask. Why should we not grant them amnesty? These are people in the LP that I'm supposed to be that insist that if I don't take them seriously, I'm part of like this alt-right coup party, which I'm not involved in the party at all. Fuck the party. If you watched our last episode, hey, you would have known this. Any governmental request to social media platforms to review or remove certain content. he added, should be made with extreme transparency. Agreed. The DHS expansion to misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation represent MDM. By the way, come on. Now that you've created this little cult jargon MDM, right? You could just put that there. And then they can turn this into a Scientology thing. We're just having to check definitions of acronyms all day. Represents an important strategic retooling for the agency, which was founded in 2002 in response to the 9/11 attacks as a bulwark. Did I say that right? Civil libertarian, yes. Thank you, Shiny. Represents an, bulwark. I'm saying that right. Coordinate intelligence and security operations across the government. At the same time, the FBI deployed thousands of agents to focus on counterterrorism efforts through building informant networks and intelligence operations designed at preventing similar attacks. Which apparently Chris Cantwell said that he was involved in that, which is not. It's not true. No, he wasn't really an informant. He was a snitch. But traditional forms of terrorism posed by groups like Al-Qaeda evolved with the rise of social media, with groups like the Islamic State using platforms such as Facebook to recruit and radicalize new members. After initial reluctance, social media giants work closely with the FBI and DHS to help monitor and remove ISIS-affiliated accounts. Okay, so if you actually have a group that's actually engaged, the group themselves are engaged in acts of terrorism, and you want to remove that from your platform, that is a perfectly reasonable position to do that. All right, that's not really, that's where we're getting into some dicey territories about what actually constitutes free speech, right? If you're saying, come join us, because we're going to go bomb X building on X day, or help us. Did you like 9/11? You want to do it? You want to do something like that again? Join us. That's something very different than saying, hey, you know what? I don't know about that 2020 election. That Joe Biden doesn't seem all with it. How does he get the most amount of votes? Banned. But traditional form of terrorism posed by groups like Al-Qaeda evolved with the rise of social media, with groups like I already said this. The FBI Director James Comey told the Senate Intelligence Committee that law enforcement agencies need to rapidly adapt and confront the challenges posed by terror networks that have proven adept at tapping into social media. Intelligence agencies backed up new startups designed to monitor the vast flow of information across networks to better understand emerging narratives and risks, which, by the way, that is fair. But again, feature creep crept in. You actually did have Al-Awlaki. Again, God damn it. Nice bulwark. I don't know. I did. Al-Awlaki. Al-Awlaki. There we go. Anwar Al-Awlaki. This guy. This guy was on YouTube, and he was making lots of videos talking about how Durka Muhammad Jihad, and you should also help Durka Muhammad Jihad. And he was actually getting people recruited. He was very effective in that. This guy was a piece of shit in every single respect, and the U.S. government murdered him without due process through a drone strike, a U.S. citizen. And these are the people that you want in charge, not you. You in the royal sense, the royal we, from the editorial, want in charge of controlling whether or not things are true or not. Is the guy that fucking murdered an American citizen without due process. That's who we want. That's who we want in charge of determining whether or not information is wrong. actual fucking murderers. The department has not fully reauthorized since its inception over 15 years ago. The Senate Homeland Security Committee warned in 2018 as the threat landscape continues to evolve. The department adjusted its organization and activities to address emerging threats and protect the U.S. homeland. This evolution of the department's duties and organization, including the structure and operations of the DHS headquarters, has never been codified into statute. Weird that they would leave it enough, just enough vagary to do exactly all the things that they wanted to do, including getting all of their favorite politicians elected and throwing up all sorts of false information from official channels to discredit politicians that are elected that they don't like Donald Trump or whatever. The subsequent military defeat of ISIS forces in Syria and Iraq, along with withdrawal from Afghanistan, left the Homeland Security apparatus without a target. Now the target is you. Meanwhile, a new threat entered the discourse. Weird how they have to find some sort of enemy in order to justify their continuing existence. Convenient. They just happen to stumble. Oh, wow, look at this. Bad people on the internet. Trolls on the internet. Shit posting. The allegation that Russian agents had seeded disinformation on Facebook that tripped the 2016 election towards Donald Trump resulted in the FBI forming a Foreign Intelligence Task Force, a team devoted to preventing foreign meddling in American elections. It's bad when they do it to us, but it's okay when we do it to them. According to DHS meeting minutes from March, the FBI's... I'm at the right spot. According to the DHS meetings from March, the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force this year includes 80 individuals focusing on curbing, quote, subversive data utilized to drive a wedge between the populace and the government. Darn. That sounds really unfortunate. How do I do that? The department will spearhead initiatives to raise awareness of disinformation campaigns targeting communities in the United States, providing citizens the tools necessary to identify and halt the spread of information operations intended to promote radicalization to violent extremism or mobilizations towards violence. DHS Acting Secretary Kevin McAllen, said in a September Mayoism. Kevin Mayoism. That's how you say it. Said in a September 2019 strategic framework. DHS also began to broaden its watch to include a wide array of domestic actors viewed as potential sources of radicalization and upheaval. An FBI official interviewed by The Intercept now. How long is this? This thing is still going. Jeez. An FBI official interviewed by The Intercept described how in the summer of 2020, amid the George Floyd protest riots, he was resigned from his normal job of countering foreign intelligence, or counterfeiting, whatever, same thing, countering foreign intelligence services, counterfeiting information, services to monitoring American social media accounts. The official, not authorized to speak publicly, described the reassignment on condition of anonymity. And a June 2020 memo bearing the same subject line, actions to address the political threats posed by domestic terrorists and other domestic extremists, prepared by the DHS headquarters for Wolf. Trump's acting DHS secretary delineates plans to, quote, expand information sharing with the tech sector in order to, quote, identify disinformation campaigns used by DT, domestic terrorism actors, to incite violence against infrastructure, ethnic, racial, or religious groups or individuals, unquote. The memo outlines plans to work with the private tech sectors to share unclassified DHS intelligence on domestic terror actors and their tactics, unquote, so that the platforms can, quote, move effectively use their own tools to, is that a typo? Move effectively use their own tools to enforce user agreements / terms of service and remove DT content. Biden also prioritized such efforts. Last year, the Biden administration released the first national strategy for countering domestic terrorism. Before I read this, those actions are going to be people complaining about shit on the internet. I'm like, where's my crystal ball, right? The strategy I have not read this, by the way. I have not read this yet. The strategy identified a broader priority in enhancing faith in government. Right. I win. What do I win? What do I win? And addressing the extreme polarization fueled by a crisis of disinformation and misinformation, often channeled through social media platforms, which can tear Americans apart and lead some to violence. I win. Then what do I win? Not having to take a shot of Malort. Last year, a top FBI counterterrorism official came under fire when she falsely denied to Congress that the FBI monitors American social media and therefore missed threats leading up to the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. The worst day ever. It was like 9/11 times 1,000. That's right. 911,000. And the FBI had spent millions of dollars on social media tracking software like BabelX. I said it right. And data miner, according to the Bureau's official guidelines, authorized activities include proactively surfing the internet to find publicly accessible websites and services, which recruitment by terrorist organization and promotion of terrorist crimes is openly taking place. Another FBI official, a Joint Terrorism Task Force officer, described to The Intercept being reassigned this year from the Bureau's International Terrorism Division, where they had primarily worked on cases involving Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group, to the Domestic Terrorism Division to investigate Americans, including anti-government individuals such as radically motivated violent extremists, sovereign citizens. By the way, I want to know, is this an Admiralty news article or is this a civil news article? Because I see fringes on the flag on one of these articles. By the way, my name is not Jim Jesus. That is a legal fiction created by the government. I am a representative of the entity known by the state. And I would like to call the state to the stand. Okay, sorry. Sovereign citizens are fucking retards. Militias and anarchists. Weird. Right? What kind of anarchists do they mean? Like, I think when they're saying anarchist, they're trying to imply it's the kind of anarchists that are throwing Molotov cocktails through bank windows. But I think what they actually mean is just, Drew shit posting on Twitter about meeting Bob Murphy at a grocery store. That's what it really means. They continue to work undercover. They continue to work on an undercover basis online to penetrate social networking chat rooms, online forums, and blogs to direct, enter, dismantle, and disrupt existing and emerging terrorist organizations via online forums, chat rooms, bulletin boards, blogs, websites, and social media networking, said the FBI official, who did not have permission to speak on the record. Was that Cantwell? Serious question. Is that Cantwell? Was that Cantwell they were talking to? The Privacy Act of 1974 the Privacy Act of 1974, enacted following the Watergate scandal, restricts government data collection of Americans exercising their First Amendment rights, a safeguard civil liberty groups have argued limits the ability of the DHS and the FBI to engage in surveillance of American political speech expressed on social media. So not only are they not allowed to tell social media companies to delete it, not only are they allowed to have free reign on a social media platform like they did Facebook to delete and censor and down throttle particular news articles, they're not even allowed to surveil it. And they're doing it. Again, this is why this Missouri, sorry, Drew. This is why this Missouri lawsuit is being filed, and this is why a bunch of other states are going to follow. Not just states, but private individuals, civil libertarian groups that are actually good, are going to be like, what in the actual fuck? Statute, however, maintains exemptions for information collected for the purposes of a criminal or law enforcement investigation, which none of these were. These agencies were not going in and trying to stop misinformation about COVID because they legitimately thought that anybody who spreaded this information was going to go bomb a 5G tower. They were collecting this information and thwarting it so that no one would question all of these state COVID regimes. And they were perfectly fine about spreading misinformation about Ron DeSantis being Death Santas and how everybody in Florida was dying all over the place because he didn't mandate people wear masks, didn't mandate people get vaccine passports. It turned out that the death rate in his state was comparable to any other population. In fact, if you actually look at the data, and Tom Woods has a great resource on this. I wish I had it offhand. If someone knows it, tell me what it is, and I will allow it in the chat. Because hyperlinks will automatically get blocked, but if you post it, I'll see it, and I can unblock it. But Tom Woods actually has this great resource where he actually shows it, like, there is no correlation between COVID infection rates and deaths, and there's no between states that have various different policies. It's just almost scattershot. For every one state that you'll find has like this really high infection and death rate, you'll find another state that had the exact opposite policy that had this same death rate, really high. And for every low one that you can find, like, oh, this one had, COVID, low COVID death rates, and they had mask policies. You can find one with very similar statistics that allowed people to walk around without a mask or a passport. There is no correlation whatsoever. Either or. Either way. It had the effect of worse than a placebo. Am I still connected? Yes, I am still connected. There are no specific legal constraints on the FBI to use of social media. Senior Director of the Brennan Center of Justice. I am still live. Okay. I just want to make sure. I have to keep checking because if this is something I feel like the government could shut down for inciting violence, even though I'm explicitly saying not to. The Attorney General guidelines permit agencies to look at social media before there is any investigation at all. It's so kind of weird, wild, weird west out here. This is all just kind of, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, all of this is basically coming down to that the U.S. government was violating the law by monitoring social media posts, censor, and having tech agencies allow them to censor posts online. This is what's actually happening right now. And I'm told by dipshit libertarians who are completely out of touch, they're a private platform, they can do whatever they want. Sure, they can do whatever they want. But they also have government agencies breathing down their necks telling him what to do and what not to do, and what to allow and what not to allow. And this is, these are also the same agencies that continuously lied to us about COVID. They continuously lied to us about Iraq. They continuously lied to us about Afghanistan. Up until the very last second. To this day, they're still lying about it, even though the U.S. is officially not involved in there. They lie about Yemen. Actually, they pretend like there's nothing happening in Yemen. They lie about Syria. They lied about Vietnam. They lied about every military involvement, at least in living memory, for me. I am supposed to believe that they're like the bulwark of truth. They're not. This is the article that I really want to read. This is kind of amazing. This is written by Emily Oster in The Atlantic. Emily Oster has a long history on Twitter and social media telling people to shame people who are involved with COVID misinformation or not wearing masks or not getting a vaccine, demanding that the government have lockdowns, demanding the government do more about enforcing masks and COVID vaccines, laughing at people who couldn't see their loved ones, laughing at people who were getting abused by the government for not wearing a mask or not having a passport. And now that it seems as though all of that information was wrong. And now that there is going to be an obvious red wave. And a lot of the people that are involved in the red wave, the candidates that are projected to win or projected to be neck and neck, which could win, a lot of them are like, there has to be heads rolling. There has to be heads rolling about this COVID hysteria that happened. And rightly so. All the lives that were destroyed, the economy was destroyed. People lost their jobs. People lost their businesses, their fucking life's work just thrown in the trash. Not just thrown in the trash, but like they were thrown in the trash and then get to see like people who are a little bit more closer in bed with the government allowed to do all the things that they weren't allowed to do. I know that there was a woman in California who was upset that she was not allowed to have her restaurant running. She wasn't even allowed outdoors seating. But in the parking lot of her restaurant, there was Hollywood executives and Hollywood actors and Hollywood producers and film directors having an event where they're all going to eat outside without a mask. And it almost kind of rubs it in. By the way, this is my last bit of nicotine for quite some time. That didn't go how I wanted it to. But I'm going to pretend like it did. But now all these people want to declare a pandemic amnesty. Because now that all of these things turned out to be crap, they admit that it's crap. And it looks like the people that are calling for heads to roll are going to get elected. Now they're like, well, maybe we should have an amnesty. And the response on Twitter is, nah. Everyone on Twitter is just, fuck you, you piece of shit. I think one of my favorite kind of responses to it was this guy who was saying like, look, like it's kind of like being stuck on an island. Kind of being stuck on an island, and your friends, and you were like with about a few other people, and then like a group of these people were like, hey, we should eat all of these other guys. And then when you get saved at the last minute, we're like, yeah, that was crazy back there, No harm, no foul, though, right? It's like, motherfucker, you were going to eat us. Some of you actually did eat some of us. I'm not forgetting that shit. I'm not forgetting that shit. It was nearly impossible for me because I had was transitioning to another job, and it looked like I was going to get like right in, because I had worked for a really bad temp agency. Well, actually, it was a good temp agency, but then the girl who was in charge of my finding me jobs quit, and now I know why she quit. But she quit, and when she quit, it was taken over by 2 other people, and they were god awful, and they were so bad at finding me work. And she then ended up getting me because in one of the places that I worked at, I had to have a minimum of I had to work at least 3 8-hour shifts per month, and they did everything that they could to get me shifts everywhere else. And then when I kept telling them, like, hey, I haven't worked there in like all month. It's like 2 weeks in. I only have 2 weeks left to get like 3 shifts. I need to work those 2 shifts. Otherwise I'll get fired. Oh yeah, well, we'll get to it. We'll find you something tomorrow. But for now, do you want to go to this other place? And it's like, well, yeah, I do want to work, but I'd rather work at the place, that I get more regular work at, but you're not putting me there. What's going on? So I had to quit abruptly, and one of the places one of the places that I was temping at was like, hey, apply here. And one of the ladies that worked there was like, apply here. And so when I quit in November, that's when things started getting like really shaky. It was like late November, December. And so things were getting kind of shaky just around the holidays, and there was the looming threat of COVID seeping into the country. And so everything was kind of like put on hold. And so I was basically out of work for like a good 4 months. And a lot of it had to do with like threats that they were going to shut down everything. And even still, I didn't actually get on the floor working until I think the beginning of June of that year. And a lot of it had to do with the pandemic stuff and the shortages of supplies and blah, blah, blah. So, no. You get no amnesty. Not only do you get no amnesty, I'm going to treat you with the exact amount of mercy that you gave me. And the exact amount of mercy that you gave everybody else for not complying with your shit. So, fuck you, Emily Oster, and fuck everybody else who was pushing this shit hard. DIAF, up against the wall with all of you. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this up here. Seems like everybody's kind of tucking in to go to bed because it's a work day. It's a Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. And I hope to do this more often. And at some point, I'll have to announce there is a bottle over there. It's a bottle right there. And that's a bottle of Malort. I actually did a review of Malort. Let me get that. Let me get that review so you can see it. There we go. I want to post this in chat. There is a link. There's my review of Malort. Have a good night, Shiny. There's my review of Malort. It is the worst thing I have ever tasted. And that's what that bottle is over there. I tell the whole story behind it. It's someday, at some point, I'm going to enact a policy that if someone gives me $100 super chat, even if they don't tell me to take a shot of it, someone gives me $100 super chat, and I'll probably have to limit it. This is not effective yet, so don't do it yet, because I'm not going to do it. But But if someone gives me $100 super chat, I will take a shot of that at a later episode. And I'll probably vomit. And I'm probably going to be limited to like 3 because I don't want to get shit-faced on camera again. Because the last time that happened, oh boy, things got a little too spicy. So I had to delete that episode completely. But anyways, at some point we're going to enact the Malort rule. And when the Malort rule is in, there will be like a little banner at the bottom of the screen telling you when the Malort challenge is on. If someone asks me, I'll tell them. And I'm not going to do more than 3. And I'll even have my little shot glass by my desk at all times when it comes time. And I don't tell me to do it right now because I'm not going to do it because I don't have my trash can ready. Because I'm going to need a trash can. I'm probably going to throw up. It's really that bad. But let's try. I think I'm off next Friday. If I'm off next Friday, I will do another live stream and maybe have a guest on or something. Actually, we can get rid of that now. Yeah, so there it is. Actually, let's hide the chat box for just a brief second. Right there. There's my little bottle of Malort. I also have barrel-aged Malort, but I'm not cracking that open. I'm not cracking that open until I do a review on it, and I'm scared to actually record that episode. But it's going to be the next episode that I record, which I am not looking forward to at all, because I hear it's actually worse than that Malort. And that was the worst thing I've ever tried. I'm not going to actually puke on, like, you're not actually going to see me throw up. If I throw up, I'm going to be like over here throwing up. So you won't actually see it. You'll just hear me do it. I did that with hot sauce. Yeah. So there's the bottle right there, and it's going to be there, and I'm going to put a little banner at the bottom. I'm going to build the little bottom. Oh, it completely wiped chat when I did that? Weird. That's weird that it does that. I should have just put the camera over it and then brought it back down. I said brought it back down. Thank you. Yeah, so next time I know how to do that. Lagavulin DX. Is it Distiller's Edition? What is DX? No. I can understand if your position on Lagavulin is, it's way too smoky and gross. I really don't like this flavor of smoke. I don't like Scotch. It's terrible. This is offensively foul. And that review that I posted in chat will exactly tell you how it is. It's sweet and bitter at first, and then the bitter just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And there's like this scent of nail polish remover. And I know that you probably experienced alcohol that had that kind of acetone kind of character. This is not like an acetone characteristic. It literally smells like someone's doing their nails. It is. And you feel like your body goes into like, am I being poisoned right now? Was that poison that I just consumed? Am I going to die? That's what your body like starts doing. And it's like, I want to throw that up. And I only took a tiny sip and I was already like on the verge of getting like gaggy, but I did not gag. Oh, disgusted 10. And then comparing it to doing A, B, C comparisons against Ardbeg Ugal and Lagavulin 16 in side-by-side comparison. And I already reviewed those in other previous episodes. It was all recorded at once. And I spliced it up into 3 episodes. And the final episode is going to be back-to-back tastings to determine which one I liked the best. And my conversion to an Ardbeg cult. Or not Ardbeg, because spoiler, it wasn't Ardbeg. One of the South Isla smoky cults. And yeah. So anyways, I'm surprised no one actually brought up that what game I was streaming in the background. If someone wants to leave it in the comments after this is over, high five to you. And again, when you see the little thing at the bottom of the screen that says Malort time, It'll be Malort time for whoever wants to pay for me drinking garbage. Anyways, I will talk to you guys later. Hail Mephi.